I only sang an old song at the karaoke bar down the street. Something adults do when they're tired. He dragged me to the parking lot, slapped me, whispered that I was disgracing the family. He thought that night there was only wind and the hum of air conditioners. He didn't know who had recorded everything, every punch, every threat, each frame time-stamped. My name is Lena Hart, and at 34, I never thought I'd be back in my childhood bedroom, staring at the same water stain on the ceiling that looked like a lopsided butterfly. The divorce papers were final 3 months ago, and here I was, a compliance officer at Westlake Meridian Health, living with my mother and her husband while I scraped together a down payment for my own place. Kurt Halley had married my mother 12 years ago, at 56. He was COO of Northbridge Utilities, a private infrastructure contractor with tentacles wrapped around every municipal project in Raven Oaks, Ohio. He wore his authority like an expensive suit, tailored, imposing, and impossible to ignore. The house smelled like his cologne even when he wasn't there, pine and leather, with something sharp underneath that made my throat tight. At dinner, he'd slice his steak with surgical precision while delivering pronouncements about family honor and maintaining standards. My mother, Diane, would nod along, her wine glass never quite empty, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. Tyler's presentation went beautifully today, Kurt announced one Tuesday evening, gesturing toward my younger half-brother with his fork. The board was impressed. Natural leadership. Tyler, 28 and soft around the edges, preened under the attention. He'd been hired straight into Northbridge's business development team. No experience required when your stepfather signs the checks. "That's wonderful, honey," Mom murmured, refilling her glass. I pushed peas around my plate. In my world of healthcare compliance, nepotism like that would trigger a dozen red flags and an ethics review. But Kurt's world operated on different rules. "Lena, you're awfully quiet," Kurt observed, his gray eyes settling on me like searchlights. "No stories from the hospital?" "No. Compliance victories to share?" The way he said compliance made it sound like a hobby, not a profession. Like I spent my days arranging paper clips instead of ensuring million-dollar contracts met federal regulations. "Just reviewing updated HIPAA guidelines," I said evenly. "Nothing that would interest you." "Everything interests me when it concerns family." He set down his knife with a deliberate clink. "We're all representatives of the Halley name, even temporary residents." Temporary. He never let me forget that my presence here was conditional. Tolerated, but not welcomed. The house rules reflected this hierarchy. Tyler could have friends over any time. I needed 24 hours' notice. Tyler's laundry appeared folded on his bed. Mine sat in the dryer until I retrieved it. Small indignities that accumulated like compound interest. Some nights, I'd hear Kurt on the phone in his study, voice booming about city contracts and maintaining relationships. He'd emerged flushed with satisfaction, pouring himself a scotch, while Mom asked how his day went. He'd pat her cheek and say, "Another victory for the Halley legacy, darling." Legacy. He wielded that word like a weapon, especially when Tyler disappointed him, which was rare, or when I simply existed in his space, which was always. I started eating dinner at my desk most nights, citing overtime. It was easier than navigating the minefield of Kurt's disapproval. But Friday evenings were mandatory family time, no exceptions. We'd sit in the living room while Kurt held court about his latest conquest in the infrastructure world, how he'd outmaneuvered another contractor, how the mayor himself had called to congratulate him. "Power," he'd say, swirling his scotch, "isn't about what you can do. It's about what others believe you can do to them." I'd bite my tongue until it bled, thinking about the whistleblower cases I'd handled, the executives who'd thought themselves untouchable until the evidence mounted and the handcuffs clicked. But this was his house, his rules, for now. The breaking point was building like pressure in a sealed container. I could feel it in the way my shoulders tensed when his car pulled into the driveway, in the way Mom's hands shook slightly when pouring his drink, in the way Tyler's laughter grew louder and more desperate for approval. Home was supposed to be a sanctuary. This house was a kingdom, and Kurt Halley was its tyrant king. ruling through intimidation disguised as family values. But even kings could fall. I'd seen it happen in boardrooms and courtrooms. I just didn't know yet that I'd be the one to push him off his throne. Friday nights at the Blue Canary were my pressure valve. The karaoke bar sat wedged between a laundromat and a tax office, its neon sign flickering like it couldn't decide whether to stay lit. Inside, the air was thick with beer and possibility, a place where accountants became rock stars and nurses channeled Aretha Franklin. I'd discovered it 3 weeks after moving back home, close enough to walk if I'd had one too many, far enough that Kurt's sphere of influence shouldn't reach. The regulars knew me as the woman who favored Pat Benatar and Hart, who tipped well and sang like she meant it. That night, I needed the release more than usual. Kurt had spent dinner lecturing about professional presentation while looking pointedly at my hospital ID badge, still clipped to my blouse. Mom had developed a sudden fascination with her salad. Tyler had smirked behind his water glass. The Blue Canary wrapped around me like a worn blanket. Jordan Pike, the DJ and sound manager, gave me a wave from behind his fortress of mixing boards and laptops. The man ran the place like a Swiss watch, cameras at every angle to keep the peace and protect the equipment, he'd told me once. Rough week, Lena. Marcy, the bartender, slid my usual vodka tonic across the scarred wood. You could say that. I took a long sip, feeling the tension in my shoulders start to unlock. By 10:30, I was 3 drinks in and ready. I scrawled my name on the sign-up sheet. Barracuda, by heart. When Jordan called my name, I climbed the small stage, grabbed the microphone like a lifeline. The opening drums kicked in, and I let everything go. The frustration, the humiliation, the sense of being trapped in someone else's kingdom. My voice ripped through the speakers, raw and angry and free. The crowd cheered. Someone whistled. For 3 minutes and 28 seconds, I wasn't the unwanted house guest or the compliance officer. I was just Lena, and I was electric. I was halfway through the second verse when I saw him. Kurt stood near the entrance, flanked by 2 men in expensive suits, the kind of clients he'd wine and dine before city council meetings. His face had gone the color of raw beef, eyes locked on me with an expression I'd never seen before, beyond anger, beyond embarrassment, something primal and dangerous. My voice faltered for just a beat before I forced myself to finish. Never show weakness, never give him the satisfaction, but my hands shook as I set the microphone back in its stand. The applause felt distant, muffled, as I stepped off the stage. Kurt was already moving, cutting through the crowd like a shark through water. His hand clamped around my upper arm before I could reach the bar. Outside. Now. His voice was low, controlled, but his fingers dug deep enough to bruise. Kurt, Not here. He steered me toward the exit, past his confused clients, past Jordan who half stood behind his equipment, past Marcy who'd frozen mid-pour. The parking lot slapped us with humid August air and the smell of hot asphalt. Kurt dragged me between 2 cars, away from the building's windows, but still under the yellow wash of sodium lights. That's when his control snapped. The first slap spun my head sideways, made my ears ring. The second knocked me against someone's Honda. I tasted copper. You think this is funny? His face was inches from mine, spit flying. You think you can humiliate me in front of my clients? It's just karaoke. His hand wrapped around my throat, not squeezing, but threatening. You carry the Hallie name. You live under my roof. You do not, he punctuated each word with a shake, embarrass me, ever. I'm not even a Hallie, I managed. That earned me another slap, harder. My vision sparked. You are what I say you are, and right now, you're a disgrace. He released me so suddenly I stumbled. My knee hit the pavement, tearing my jeans. He stood over me, straightening his tie like he'd just finished a business negotiation. Get yourself home, he said, voice returning to that dangerous calm. We'll discuss your future in my house tomorrow. He walked back toward the Blue Canary, probably to salvage his client dinner with apologies about family drama. I stayed on my knees in the parking lot, blood in my mouth, his handprint burning on my cheek, until Marcy found me 10 minutes later. What neither of us knew was that Jordan's security system had captured everything. The cameras he'd installed to prevent bar fights and protect his equipment had recorded each slap, each threat, each moment of Kurt Halley showing his true face. The king had just made his first fatal mistake, and the evidence was already uploading to a secure server, time-stamped and pristine. The emergency room at Westlake Meridian smelled like industrial disinfectant and despair. I knew the intake nurse, Sheila, worked the night shift, had 2 kids in college. Her eyes widened when she saw my face. Jesus, Lena, what happened?
I need to follow protocol, I said, voice flat. Document everything. Take photos. I want to file a report.
Professional distance was my armor. I'd processed dozens of workplace violence cases, knew the procedures by heart. Now I was on the other side of the clipboard, watching Sheila's careful hands measure the bruises on my throat. Document the split lip, the swelling around my left eye. Domestic? She asked gently. Stepfather. The word tasted like ash. The photos were clinical, harsh under the fluorescent lights, front view, both profiles, close-ups of each mark, evidence tags for scale. My face looked like a stranger's in the camera's preview screen, puffy, discolored, defeated. Officer Davidson arrived 40 minutes later, mid-50s, wedding ring, tired eyes. I recognized the type, counting days to retirement, avoiding paperwork that might complicate his exit.
Ms. Hart? He flipped open a notebook.
Tell me what happened. I gave him facts, times, locations, exact words. His pen moved slower with each detail, finally stopping altogether when I mentioned Kurt's name. Kurt Halley? From Northbridge Utilities?
Yes.
Something shifted in his expression. And this happened at a bar? Had you been drinking? I had 3 drinks over 2 hours. He assaulted me in the parking lot. Alleged assault. He tapped his pen against the notebook. Any witnesses? The entire bar saw him drag me outside. The parking lot has security cameras. I'll look into that, but his tone said he wouldn't. These family disputes, they're complicated. Mr. Halley's a respected member of the community.
So am I.
He gave me a look that said, not the same kind of respected. I'll file the report, but honestly, might be better to handle this internally. Family counseling, maybe. No need to drag everyone through the system. The system, the one I'd spent years believing in, ensuring compliance with, trusting to protect people like me. Davidson left with a perfunctory promise to follow up, but I knew that report would sink to the bottom of a pile, weighed down by Kurt's influence. Mom was waiting in the kitchen when I got home at 3 a.m., wine glass empty, eyes red.
Lena, honey, Kurt told me what happened.
Did he tell you he hit me? She flinched. He said you were drunk, making a scene, that he had to remove you before you embarrassed yourself further. Look at my face, Mom. You've always been dramatic. Remember in high school when he hit me? I pulled out my phone, showed her the ER photos. They documented everything. I filed a police report. The wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the tile. Neither of us moved to clean it. You didn't, Lena. You have to retract it. Kurt has connections. The city council, the police chief. They golf together. You're going to ruin everything. He assaulted me. He disciplined you. The words erupted from her, desperate and ugly. You're living in his house, drinking too much, acting like what, Mom? Like someone who deserves basic human dignity? Tyler appeared in the doorway, hair mussed from sleep. He took in the scene, my battered face, Mom's tears, the broken glass, and his expression hardened. What did you do now, Lena? Not what happened, or are you okay? What did I do? Go back to bed, Tyler, Mom said. No, I want to hear this. Dad's in his study, on the phone with lawyers, at 3 a.m, because of her. Dad, not Kurt, not stepfather. Dad, the chosen son defending his king. I left them there. Mom crying over the broken glass. Tyler radiating righteous indignation. In my room, I opened my laptop and started documenting everything in a secure file. Times, dates, conversations, the dismissive officer, Mom's denial, Tyler's immediate assumption of my guilt. Then I opened my work email and searched for our legal department's contacts. Westlake Meridian had partnerships with several law firms. Corporate contracts weren't my specialty, but I knew enough. Kurt's company had vendor agreements with our hospital system. Where there were contracts, there were clauses, ethics provisions, codes of conduct. The police might bury my report, but I'd spent 5 years ensuring healthcare executives faced consequences for their actions. I knew how to build a case, how to create paper trails that couldn't be ignored. Kurt thought his connections made him untouchable, but I worked in compliance. I knew the difference between power and accountability, and I was done being dismissed. Jordan Pike called me 3 days later. I almost didn't answer. The bruises had faded to yellow-green, and I'd been living in a careful détente at home, avoiding Kurt's schedule, eating meals in my room. "Lena, it's Jordan from the Blue Canary. Can we meet?" "Not at the bar, somewhere private." We met at a Denny's 2 towns over, the kind where truckers drank coffee at 2 p.m., and no one looked twice at anyone. Jordan sat hunched in a back booth, laptop bag clutched like a life preserver. "I saw what happened," he said without preamble. "All of it." My coffee cup rattled against the saucer. "You were watching?" "Not watching, recording." He pulled out his laptop, angled it away from the aisle. "I've got 8 cameras covering the property. High def, infrared capable, cloud backup. Started installing them after we had that brawl last year. Insurance company insisted." The screen showed a grid of camera feeds. He clicked on one labeled Lot Cam 3. There I was, grainy but clear under the sodium lights. There was Kurt, dragging me between the cars. The timestamp glowed in the corner, 08/14/2025, 22:47:33. "Jordan, just watch." I watch myself get slapped, watch my head snap back, watch Kurt's hand on my throat. The audio was surprisingly clear. Wind noise couldn't muffle his threats. My protests. The sound of my knee hitting asphalt. Every second time-stamped. Every frame indisputable. "There's more." Jordan switched feeds. Entrance camera shows him arriving with clients. Stage camera has you performing. Completely normal. Not drunk or disorderly. Exit camera shows him forcing you out. It's all here. "Why didn't you say something that night?" His hands twisted around his coffee mug. "I wanted to, but Lena, your stepfather's company maintains half the utility infrastructure in the city, including the Blue Canaries. One call from him, claiming code violations or safety concerns, and I'm shut down." "So why now?" "Because I can't sleep." He met my eyes for the first time. "I've watched that video 20 times. I keep thinking, what if he does it again? What if next time is worse? I have daughters, Lena." I studied his face, saw the genuine conflict there. "I need that footage." I figured, but I also need protection. I can't lose the bar. It's everything I have. My compliance brain kicked into gear. I can draft an NDA, non-disclosure agreement that protects you as a source. Any retaliation would violate whistleblower protections. Would that actually work? With the right lawyer, yes. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through contacts. Rebecca Chen from our legal department owes me a favor. She specializes in employment law, handles sensitive disclosures. "No cops?" "The cops already buried my report. This is different. This is evidence for civil proceedings, corporate ethics violations, leverage." Jordan chewed his lip. "How do I know Kurt won't just... he's got connections everywhere." "Because I'm going to document everything, create redundancies, establish chains of custody that would hold up in federal court if necessary." I leaned forward. "Jordan, I've spent 5 years making sure powerful people face consequences. I know how to build cases that can't be buried." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "What do you need me to do?" "First, make copies, multiple copies, Upload to secure cloud storage. Physical drives in separate locations. I'll have Rebecca draft the NDA. You'll be protected as a confidential informant providing evidence of executive misconduct. Executive misconduct? Kurt's not just some guy who hit his stepdaughter. He's COO of a major contractor with government and healthcare contracts. Those contracts have ethics clauses. What he did violates every one of them. Jordan's expression shifted, understanding dawning. You're not going after him as family. You're going after him as a corporate officer. I'm going after him from every angle possible. I pulled out my tablet, started making notes. I need you to export the full video files, not compressed, original quality. Include all metadata, timestamps, camera IDs, hash values for authentication. Hash values? Digital fingerprints, proves the videos haven't been altered. Rebecca can walk you through the technical requirements. He nodded slowly. Okay, I can do this. But Lena, he seemed really connected that night. Those clients were from Meridian Construction, subcontractor on the new water treatment plant. I recognized one of them from a joint venture meeting last month. I smiled grimly. See, that's the thing about connections. They work both ways. Every relationship he leverages is also a potential liability. Jordan pulled out a thumb drive. I already made a copy, just in case. I stared at the small piece of plastic that contained my proof. My vindication. My weapon. Thank you, I said quietly. Don't thank me yet. He's going to come at you hard when this gets out. Let him. I've been hit by Kurt Halley before. I pocketed the drive. This time, I'll be the one doing the hitting. Jordan's relief was palpable as we worked through the details. Secure drop procedures, communication protocols, contingency plans. By the time we left Denny's, I had the evidence I needed and he had legal protection in writing. Kurt thought he'd deleted that night with his connections and intimidation, but it lived on in 8 different camera angles, uploaded to servers he couldn't reach, protected by laws he couldn't circumvent. The king's throne was built on fear and favors. Time to show him what happened when someone stopped being afraid. Rebecca Chen's office smelled like leather and ambition. She'd reviewed the footage twice, taking notes in her precise handwriting, occasionally pausing to zoom in on timestamps or audio levels. This is solid, she said finally. Chain of custody documented, metadata intact, multiple angles corroborating the narrative. From a legal standpoint, it's a prosecutor's dream. Except the prosecutor won't touch it. Then we make them irrelevant. She pulled up 3 different documents on her monitor. We're going to attack from multiple vectors simultaneously, make it impossible for his connections to shield him. Vector 1. Criminal. I'll file a motion to reconsider with the DA's office, attaching the video evidence. Even if they try to bury it, it creates a paper trail. Every denial becomes potential evidence of corruption. Vector 2. Civil. Personal injury suit seeking damages and a protective order. The video makes liability indisputable. His insurance company will pressure him to settle rather than risk a jury seeing this. Vector 3. Corporate ethics. This was where Rebecca's eyes lit up. Northbridge Utilities has contracts worth $40 million with the city. I pulled the agreements. Every single one contains a morality clause. Executive conduct that brings disrepute upon the contractor is grounds for termination. But who enforces that? The city council. And guess what? She pulled up another screen. Northbridge is up for renewal on 3 major contracts. There's a routine ethics review scheduled for next month. I stared at the dates. That's perfect. It gets better. Westlake Meridian has a $2 million service agreement with Northbridge for backup generator maintenance. Our contracts also have ethics provisions, plus a special clause about violence against partner employees. I helped write that clause, I said quietly. After the incident with the visiting surgeon 2 years ago, then you know it's airtight. Any executive who commits assault against a healthcare partner's employee triggers immediate review and potential termination. Rebecca leaned back. Lena, he hit the wrong person. You're not just family. You're a protected class under multiple contracts. We spent the next 3 hours building the strategy. Rebecca would handle the legal filings while I worked the corporate compliance angle. We'd coordinate timing for maximum impact. The whistleblower report goes through our internal system, I said, pulling up the anonymous portal on my laptop. It'll flag to the Chief Compliance Officer, the board's ethics committee, and our external auditors simultaneously. Make sure to note the conflict of interest, Rebecca advised. Northbridge executive assaulting Westlake employee while both companies have active contracts. That'll trigger mandatory disclosure requirements. I drafted the report carefully, clinical language stripped of emotion. On August 14, 2025, the undersigned witnessed and documented Kurt Halley, Chief Operating Officer of Northbridge Utilities, committing battery against a Westlake Meridian Health employee. Video evidence substantiates physical assault, verbal threats, and attempted intimidation. As Northbridge maintains active service contracts with WMH, this incident represents a material breach of Section 14.3, Executive Conduct, and creates potential liability for both organizations. Immediate review recommended to assess contract continuity and implement protective measures for WMH staff. Now for the timing, Rebecca said. Criminal motion gets filed tomorrow. That starts the clock on their response. Civil suit drops Monday. After they've had the weekend to panic, the ethics review should hit during the City Council's public session, I finished. Maximum transparency. You're learning, she smiled grimly. What about the press? I have a contact at the Raven Oaks Register. Sarah Martinez, investigative reporter. She's been digging into city contracting irregularities for months. Perfect, but we hold that card until the others are in play. Let Kurt think he's managing a legal problem, then hit him with public exposure when he's overextended. We created a timeline, backup plans, contingencies for every form of retaliation Kurt might attempt. Rebecca insisted on recording hash values for all digital evidence, creating multiple secured copies, establishing clear chains of custody that would survive any legal challenge. He's going to come at you personally, she warned. Your job, your reputation, your family relationships. My family already chose their side. Then document everything, every interaction, every threat, every attempt at manipulation. Contemporaneous notes are admissible evidence. As I prepared to leave, Rebecca handed me a business card. Mitchell Zhao, criminal defense attorney, best in the state. You call him the second Kurt tries anything. You think he will? Lena, you're about to destroy everything he's built. His reputation, his contracts, possibly his freedom. She met my eyes steadily. Men like Kurt Halley don't go down quietly. They burn everything around them first. I thought about Mom's tears, Tyler's defensiveness, the careful balance of power in that house. Some things deserve to burn. Just make sure you're not standing in the fire when it happens. That night, I sat in my car outside the house, watching Kurt's study window glow with lamplight. He was probably on the phone, making deals, pulling strings, never knowing that his empire was already crumbling in servers and filing cabinets across the city. 3 vectors of attack, criminal, civil, corporate, each reinforcing the others, creating a web he couldn't intimidate or buy his way out of. The king didn't know it yet, but the revolution had already begun. The first domino fell on Tuesday morning. Sarah Martinez called while I was reviewing contracts in my office. Lena, I just got an interesting tip about an assault case involving a Northbridge executive. Seems the police report got buried, but someone filed a motion with video evidence. Care to comment? On the record? No. Off the record? Check your encrypted email in 20 minutes. I sent her the audio file. Just sound, no video. Victim's voice digitally altered. Kurt's words rang clear. You carry the Halley name. You're a disgrace. The threats. The sound of impact. The menace in his tone. By noon, the Register's website led with City Contractor Executive under investigation for assault. My phone exploded. Kurt first, straight to voicemail. What have you done, you little bitch? Call me immediately. Then Mom, crying. How could you? The reporters are calling. The neighbors are talking. Kurt had to leave a client meeting.
I didn't respond. Rebecca had coached me well. No direct contact. Everything through lawyers.
The second domino was Westlake's response. Dr. Patricia Morse, our chief compliance officer, summoned me at 2 p.m. Lena, I received a troubling whistleblower report this morning. She held up a printout. My carefully worded disclosure. Are you the employee referenced in this incident?
Yes. And you have evidence?
I slid her a folder. Police report, medical documentation, still frames from the video. My attorney has the full footage, multiple angles, audio included. Dr. Morse's face went very still as she reviewed the images. This is substantial, and Mr. Halley is a senior executive at one of our vendors? COO. His company has the generator maintenance contract, plus 2 consulting agreements with physical plant. I see. She made notes. I'll need to brief legal immediately. In the meantime, I'm implementing Protocol 7. That's our protective measures for employees facing potential retaliation from business partners. Security will be notified, your badge access will be modified for safety, and HR will document any unusual activity regarding your employment.
Thank you.
Don't thank me. This is procedure. But her eyes were kind. Lena, what you're doing takes courage. The system only works when people are willing to use it. The third domino was Kurt's panic. By Wednesday, Northbridge's lawyers were calling Rebecca hourly. They offered settlements. First 50,000, then 100, then a number that reflects our desire to resolve this matter quietly. They're scared, Rebecca told me over coffee. My source at City Hall says 3 council members have already called for an emergency ethics review. The water treatment plant contract is worth $12 million. They can't afford to lose it. What about the criminal charges? DA's office is reassessing based on new evidence. Translation: they're figuring out how to prosecute without admitting they buried it initially. Thursday brought the fourth domino: internal fractures at Northbridge. An anonymous email to Sarah Martinez claimed 2 board members were calling for Kurt's resignation. Another source confirmed the company's insurance carrier was threatening to drop coverage if he remained in an executive position. Mom ambushed me in the parking lot that evening. "You're destroying us," she hissed, mascara streaking. "Kurt's talking about losing everything, the house, his reputation, maybe even jail. How can you do this to your family?" "He hit me, Mom." "He disciplined you. You were drunk and embarrassing." "I have video." I kept my voice level. 8 different angles. Would you like to see your husband choking me? Watch him split my lip? It's all there in HD. She recoiled. That's not... Room 314 at Westlake Memorial. That's where they documented my injuries. They took photographs, measured bruises. You can request the records if you don't believe me. But the lawyers said... His lawyers, hired to protect him, not find truth. I stepped past her. I'm done protecting men who hurt me, even if you're not. Friday morning. The final domino. The Raven Oaks Register ran a full exposé. Sarah had been busy. Interviews with Blue Canary patrons who'd witnessed the confrontation. Analysis of Northbridge's city contracts. A timeline of the buried police report. She'd even found 2 former Northbridge employees willing to speak anonymously about Kurt's management style. But the killing blow was the quote from Councilwoman Janet Torres. "Any executive who commits violence against our community members has no business holding city contracts. The ethics review will be thorough and transparent. The video evidence will be made available to the full council." My phone rang. Rebecca. "Kurt's lawyer just called. They want to meet. All parties. Tomorrow morning." No. Lena? No meetings, no negotiations. He had his chance to handle this quietly when Officer Davidson took my report. He chose to bury it. Now he faces the consequences. They're offering $500,000 and his resignation from Northbridge. I thought about all the dinners where he'd made me feel small, all the times he'd wielded power like a weapon, all the people who'd enabled him because challenging Kurt Halley was too expensive. Tell them I'll see them at the ethics review. It's public, right? Very public. City Hall, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Every seat will be filled. Good. He likes an audience. I smiled for the first time in days. Let's give him one. The Raven Oaks City Hall chambers had never been so packed. Every seat filled, people standing along the walls, news cameras stationed at strategic angles, the smell of nervous sweat and cologne mixed with the building's perpetual scent of old paper and floor wax. I sat in the back row, Rebecca beside me. Kurt was at the defendant's table. That's what they called it during ethics reviews. Flanked by 3 lawyers in $1,000 suits, he'd aged a week's worth in 5 days. His usual bronze tan faded to gray, shoulders rigid with barely controlled rage. Councilwoman Torres called the session to order. We're here to review serious allegations against Mr. Kurt Halley, COO of Northbridge Utilities, regarding conduct that may violate the ethics clauses in multiple city contracts. The city attorney stood. Council members, we've prepared a presentation of evidence. I warn you, some content is disturbing. The lights dimmed. On the projection screen, my face appeared, singing at the Blue Canary, happy, free. Then the timestamp jumped. Exit camera. Kurt grabbing my arm, dragging me out. Parking lot camera. The first slap, my head snapping back. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered, Jesus Christ. The video continued, multiple angles now, synchronized, Kurt's hand on my throat, his voice, crystal clear. You carry the Halley name. You're a disgrace. The sound of my knee hitting pavement, the threat about my future in his house. When the lights came back up, the room was silent. Mr. Halley, Councilwoman Torres said, voice tight with disgust. Would you care to explain this behavior? His lead attorney stood. My client deeply regrets a personal family matter that... Family matter? Councilman Williams interrupted. He assaulted an employee of our healthcare partner. This isn't personal. It's professional misconduct of the highest order. Dr. Morse from Westlake stood next. Council members, I'm here representing Westlake Meridian Health. The victim is our compliance officer, a respected professional with an impeccable record. Mr. Halley's actions violate Section 14.3 of our service agreement with Northbridge. We've already initiated termination proceedings. Furthermore, she continued, pulling out a folder, we've discovered this isn't isolated. 3 former Northbridge employees have filed retroactive complaints about Mr. Halley's aggressive management style. One includes medical documentation of a workplace injury. Kurt's face went from gray to purple. He whispered urgently to his lawyers. If I may. Rebecca stood, addressing the council. Ms. Hart has provided all evidence to the district attorney's office. Criminal charges are being filed as we speak. The question before this council isn't whether Mr. Halley committed assault. The video is unambiguous. The question is whether Raven Oaks will continue enriching a company that employs violent executives. We've received over 200 emails from citizens, Councilwoman Torres announced, all demanding action. Mr. Halley, do you have anything to say in your defense? Kurt stood slowly, ignoring his lawyer's attempts to stop him. For a moment, I thought he might apologize, show remorse, salvage something from the wreckage. Instead, he pointed at me. That woman is a parasite, living in my house, spending my money, embarrassing my family. I did what any father would do. You're not my father, I said, standing, my voice carried in the silent room. You're a bully who confused fear with respect, and you're about to learn the difference. Order! Torres banged her gavel, but Kurt was already ranting. She planned this, set me up, the cameras, the witnesses. Are you suggesting you were entrapped into committing assault? Councilman Chen asked dryly. That someone forced you to hit her? Kurt's lawyers finally got him to sit, but the damage was done. His mask had slipped completely, revealing the violent man beneath the executive veneer. I moved to void all contracts between Raven Oaks and Northbridge Utilities. Effective immediately, Councilwoman Torres announced. pending a comprehensive review of their executive team and corporate culture. Seconded came from 3 voices simultaneously. All in favor? 7 hands raised, unanimous. Motion carries. Furthermore, I move to bar Mr. Kurt Halley from any future city contracts, in any capacity. Another unanimous vote. The gavel came down with finality. This review is concluded. Mr. Halley, Officer Davidson is waiting in the hall with a warrant for your arrest. Kurt shot to his feet, but 2 officers were already moving. The handcuffs clicked with a sound like justice. As they led him past my row, he turned to me one last time. His eyes burned with hatred, promising retribution, threatening consequences. I met his gaze steadily, silently, no words needed. The judgment was complete. The crowd parted as they perp-walked Kurt Halley out of the chambers, past the cameras, past his former clients and colleagues who avoided eye contact, the untouchable COO reduced to another defendant in the system he'd thought he controlled. In the hallway, Sarah Martinez caught up with me. "Lena, any comment for the record?" I thought about it, choosing my words carefully. The system works when we make it work, when we demand accountability, even from those who think they're above it. "What's next for you?" "I have an apartment to find," I said. "It's time to leave the Halley house for good." Rebecca squeezed my shoulder as we walked toward the exit. Through the glass doors, I could see Kurt being loaded into a police cruiser, his empire in ruins, his reputation destroyed by 8 cameras and 1 woman who refused to stay down. The king had fallen. Long live the truth. The local news led with Kurt's mugshot for 3 days straight. By Thursday, Northbridge's board had accepted his voluntary resignation and issued a statement about new leadership directions. Their stock price dropped 12%. 2 major clients pulled contracts, citing reputational concerns. I signed the lease on my apartment the same day Kurt's bail was denied. The judge deemed him a flight risk after discovering he'd already transferred assets to offshore accounts. Funny how quickly rats abandon sinking ships. Tyler called once, leaving a voicemail about how I'd destroyed Dad's life. I deleted it without listening to the end. Some bridges deserve to burn. Mom lasted 2 weeks before showing up at my new place. She looked smaller somehow, diminished without Kurt's shadow to stand in. "The house is so quiet," she said, clutching her purse like armor. "Kurt's lawyer says he'll probably get 3 to 5 years, the assault, plus obstruction of justice for trying to bury the report. I'm sorry you're going through this, Mom." "Are you?" Her laugh was bitter. "You got what you wanted. He's gone, ruined. Are you happy now?" I thought about it honestly. I'm free. That's different from happy. But it's enough. She left without saying goodbye. I haven't seen her since. Westlake promoted me to Senior Compliance Director. Dr. Morse said anyone who could navigate a case that complex deserved hazard pay. My first initiative was expanding our workplace violence protection protocols. Nobody should have to fight as hard as I did for basic safety. Jordan kept the Blue Canary running. I still go sometimes, though I stick to the audience now. He installed 2 more cameras after everything happened. "Just in case," he says. But we both know it's really a reminder that someone's always watching, that actions have consequences even in dark parking lots. Sarah Martinez won a journalism award for her coverage. In her acceptance speech, she talked about the importance of believing survivors, of looking past powerful men's public faces to see who they really are. She didn't name me, but she didn't have to. The civil suit settled for more than Kurt's lawyers first offered, enough for a house down payment and a vacation I'd never allowed myself to dream about. I donated half to a domestic violence shelter. Money felt clean when it helped someone else escape. But the real victory came 6 months later, at a healthcare compliance conference in Chicago. I was presenting on third-party vendor ethics when a woman approached me afterward. "You're Lena Hart," she said. It wasn't a question. "I used to work at Northbridge. Kurt. He was my boss, too. When I saw what you did, how you stood up to him." She pulled out her phone, showed me an email. "I filed my own report. So did 4 others. There's a class action now. We talked for an hour. She told me about the times Kurt had cornered her in empty offices, the reports HR ignored, the NDAs she'd signed just to escape, stories I recognized in my bones.
I thought I was alone, she said. You're not. You never were.
That night, I stood on my apartment balcony, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Kurt sat in a cell, stripped of the power he'd weaponized for so long. His name, once synonymous with influence, now shorthand for disgrace. I thought about the girl I'd been that night at the Blue Canary, singing my heart out, unaware of the violence waiting in the parking lot. She deserved justice. She got it. My phone buzzed. Rebecca, forwarding another news article. Northbridge Utilities announces comprehensive ethics reform following Hallie scandal. I smiled and went inside. Tomorrow there would be new contracts to review, new protections to implement, new ways to ensure the Kurts of the world couldn't hide behind their titles and connections. But tonight, I opened a bottle of wine. The good stuff. Not the grocery store brand I'd hidden in my room at Kurt's house. I put on some music, not too loud, but loud enough to feel free. I'd spent months orchestrating his downfall, but this was my real revenge. A life lived without fear, a home where I set the rules, a future he couldn't touch. The king was dead. Long live the woman who killed him. In the end, I didn't need his name or his approval. I had something better, my own voice, and the courage to use it. Even if it started with just a song on a Friday night. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Leave a comment below and let's connect. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Your support means everything. And remember, your voice matters, no matter who tries to silence it.